Welcome to More Than Dentistry, where your hosts Evert and Waldo discuss life, dentistry, and everything in between with dentists around the world.
Hello and welcome to the More Than Dentistry podcast. Such an honor for the first interview ever to have Mark Bose. Mark's like the main guy in dentistry in my opinion in this stage. DSD, slow dentistry, DDS, all your lectures, silver member of Style Italiano, cycling across South Africa. Where the hell do you fit in dentistry?
Yeah, I must say that it's a challenge to kind of divide the time, against the things you really love. And I suppose, fortunately, I'm passionate about dentistry, so that kind of helps. I've obviously been in dentistry for a long time.
Yeah.
As I said this morning in my lecture, I think never has our profession seen such exciting times. It's really amazing. But time management, and I think is the most difficult thing for us for sure. We have all different outside interests, families, hobbies.
Yeah.
I think for me, for sure, this kind of digital workflow, this evolution that we've created or that's been created for us has actually streamlined a lot of the stuff that we were taken away and we had to spend so much time doing in an analog and a hands way that, for me, it's freed up a lot of time.
Okay.
So that's amazing.
I think just to give some context, we're at the DDS conference. Mark's obviously the president of the DDS, Digital Dentistry Society.
That's right.
And just quickly, 2 seconds, tell us about it.
So I can't tell you kind of the timeline, but it's a really new organization. Okay. It was the brainchild of Henrietta Lerner. I'm sure she was prompted by a lot of the digital companies understanding that we needed a platform, to share the knowledge on digital dentistry that wasn't biased towards company-driven platforms, an open learning platform. Again, from lectures this morning, the ability to share information on a global aspect opened the doors for all these societies to pop up around the world, because I believe that we've all got something to offer. Yeah. So about 3 years ago, the Digital Dentistry Society was set up. As I say, Henrietta Lerner is a German implant dentist. And with the help, obviously, of a bunch of people who are deeply involved in the industry, in dental, especially in digital dentistry, they reached out, to people like myself to set up something which, in the space of a really short time, has become, without doubt, the most influential, platform for dentists to find out about digital dentistry. From a non-biased point of view. And I think that's super important.
Okay. The podcast, idea of the podcast is to speak to younger people, 25 to 35-year-old dentists.
So you mean speak to them via the mic, or for me to speak to them?
No. I think for us, the idea is those are guys listening, and those are also the guys who are struggling to get into digital dentistry because of a lot of reasons, but just speak when you speak to the 25-year-old guys sitting in a Medicross, and it's really struggling. I get a lot of people phoning me for advice and asking me what to do. We're sitting with medical aids. Do you think dentistry in South Africa is at a good place?
It's always hard to give a comment on something when you're not kind of positioned across the board. I sit in a very privileged kind of, and I understand that. Having said that, I've been working in our profession for a scary long time, so it's easy for me to sit and say, we're in a really good place based on my experiences. But I think globally, I think dentistry has come under threat, over the last 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
And I kind of see the digital kind of evolution as something that's really going to save us, because if I look back at the problems. We as young dentists, and still young dentists today, one of the big issues is that we were not productive enough. In other words, it was taking a long time to achieve a great result. And so where I see it is that suddenly, at the same kind of fee structure, we can suddenly generate more income
In a shorter time.
in a shorter time,
Yeah.
but in a predictable way. I'm not talking about cutting corners.
Yeah.
So, I think we're in an interesting time, and I think that obviously the difficulties with dentistry were based on things like our perception to the general population.
Yeah.
And again, I think that kind of there are a lot of companies who understand that it's difficult for us to motivate our patients about what we're doing. So, in other words, going straight to the patient and explaining, the things that are available for our patients. So, I think it's a difficult time, but it's still an exciting time. And I think that, within a relatively short time, where we are now will change.
Yeah.
So,
do you
I'm
find stuff
optimistic.
like Instagram and Facebook has changed your practice?
I think we have to be a little bit careful with Instagram and Facebook. I mean, of course, it's changed everyone's lives, whether they like it or not. I mean, I still speak to people who say, I can't be bothered with that yet. At the end of the day, I see they got a profile. I see they kind of take a sneaky look at what's happening. It's kind of it's spreading again information, as to what we're doing. I think it's a great tool, but I think from a kind of this is exactly kind of transparency point of view for dentists, and we've got to be a little bit careful about how much we actually believe and how much educational we can get from Facebook and Instagram. But for sure, listen, I have a profile, I use it all the time, and it's networking. It's keeping in touch. And
that's
I think
what I found is the most powerful.
Yeah, it's super important. We have to keep in touch all the time. And of course, that's one of the ways, and our community is really great with Facebook and Instagram to share information and our experiences. So I think it's a really cool tool, and we have to use it, but be careful.
Okay. And I just want to take me through your journey from studying to where you are now, because you spent some time in the UK.
Yeah, so actually it's really, for me, it's really cool that I'm still involved at this kind of level, right hands-on teaching at the forefront, cutting edge stuff. But it's interesting that I did a lecture for the first time to all the new graduates about 4 months ago. And I generally ask the question because it's quite entertaining. But it turned out that every single person sitting in my lecture wasn't born when I qualified.
Oh, really?
Which is like...
Puts it in perspective.
Yeah, which puts it in perspective. So when I say I've sort of seen there, done that, I've had a really interesting ability to kind of take an overview of where our profession was, where it was heading, and where we are now, and again, where it's going. I finished in 1981, which is a long time ago.
I was born 82.
Exactly. You're another one of those. And so then I immediately went over to the UK. I spent 23 years there. A great 23 years. I made a lot of contacts, and that's why coming back to South Africa, I've been able to start South African Academies of Aesthetic Dentistry, the Digital Dentistry Society. So, I've tried to use those connections in a really positive way to uplift our dental community, because that's what we need. And about 14 years ago, I decided that it was time to head home and bring back what I had experienced and learned in Europe to South Africa, and started my current practice in Namal about 8-9 years ago. And so that's the journey. My education, and listen, and I speak to young dentists all the time, and they're like, they look and like, wow, you got to this, you must be really lucky. Or I say, where you are and where you're going to be, it's got nothing to do with luck, for sure. That it's education, it's learning, for sure. Continued learning.
Putting in the time and doing all this stuff.
Putting yourself out your comfort zone. And if you have goals and aspirations, 100%, if you're prepared to put yourself out the comfort zone, you'll get there.
I think a thing that I found important that sometimes lacking is mentorship for young dentists. Guys sitting in isolation and not... I think that's where something like Instagram and Facebook has helped a bit, because you can see what's out there. You can reach out to people like you, which is... what do you think of mentorship in dentistry?
I mean, listen, obviously I run a lot of courses, in South Africa for dentists, and I appreciate that the cost is also sometimes, not possible for them to attend, but 100%, the content of our lecture and our hands-on is not specific to the 3 days. It's what happens after that.
Yeah,
And so,
exactly.
the doors are always open, and people know that. And I think, obviously, that I teach with Howard, and Howard and myself, I think, have the same understanding of the need for connectivity. In order for dentists to develop from one level to the next. And there are going to be times where you just don't know whether you go left or right. And you need a mentor for sure, because
something like that WhatsApp group, the implantology group. It's
absolutely.
amazing amount
Ask
of
a
stuff.
question. I mean, I've said it's a cliche. There are no bad questions, for sure. You just got to ask them and get the right answer. Because making mistakes is not really an option if we can help it.
Exactly.
So mentorship's super important.
Mark, so the podcast is called More Than Dentistry.
Okay. Cool.
So tell me
like
something else outside dentistry. What do you do in your spare time?
The longest day was 265 kilometers, of which about 20 was because we got lost. So recently I'll talk about a little trip that, if we're talking about comfort zone, it's probably as far out of my comfort zone that I've ever been.
Okay.
I decided, because someone asked me, and if someone asks me and I say yes, then in my opinion, there's no backing out.
Yeah.
To ride a bicycle, that means, from Joburg to Cape Town. It took 8 days. We 50-50 mountain bike and road bike.
So you swapped bikes around?
We swapped bikes, depending whether on the dirt or the tar.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and we averaged over 200 kilometers a day.
Really? Sure.
The longest day was 265 kilometers, of which about 20 was because we got lost. And if people don't understand, that's kind of 15 hours in the saddle, in riding a bike. That was the 4th day.
So was that in Karoo?
It was through the Karoo.
I can imagine.
I think from Colesberg to wherever the next place is, 265 kilometers away. But that was, it was an incredible thing. And there were days where I'd say after 20 kilometers, I was ready to give up.
Really?
Knowing that you had another 200 in front of you. And, it's about the ability to find actually where your kind of end zone is. And it's always a long way further than you think.
Exactly.
And so, it was a great opportunity. We raised a whole lot of money for young kids' education in South Africa.
Okay, cool.
And, apart from that, I love surfing, I love diving, I love the outdoors.
Nice.
Traveling, all that sort of stuff.
Okay, cool. And time-wise, how do you manage it on a daily basis? What your working hours look like?
So I work 8 to 5. Okay. Again, another thing that I think is super important in our profession is just surrounding ourselves with people who can help us.
Yeah.
It's like, of all the things that I look back on and the mistakes that I made was kind of not investing, both financially and emotionally, in the people who are my support structure in my practice.
Okay.
On those, right from the bottom right to the top.
Yeah.
And so, fortunately, I have a super amazing group of people who make my life easy. And so I start at 8 to finish at 5, pretty much straight through the day, but a lot of that is kind of the treatment planning stuff that I do for cases. And putting together, documenting cases, I think that's really super important as well. To have some kind of ability to see what you used to do.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you take photographs now, and one of the most amazing things is to be self-analytical about stuff, And if I see where I've grown, it's because I've looked back at things that I've done and thought, wow, I can do that better.
Exactly.
And without documentation, without that sort of stuff, it's important in my opinion. It's not possible.
And you need to make time for that. That's the issue. People don't make time for documentation.
But again, going back to what I just said, is that if you have really good people working around you, suddenly you need less time.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And I was reluctant always to as I talked to my lecturer, invest in my practice.
Okay.
So in terms of equipment, in terms of what needed to be purchased, and secondly, in terms of actually investing in staff, investing in the right number of people to make my practice productive. Yeah. That I'm not distracted.
I've just come out of a bad period where my my assistant had a baby, so she was off for 4 months, and I was falling around with different assistants, and it's amazing,
and
like
how
you
it
said.
impacts your kind of your profitability.
Exactly.
Your bottom line.
Yeah.
Has a massive impact.
So eventually, after that, I decided I'm employing 2 assistants. I don't care what it costs, because one day of downtime.
In my opinion, you'll pay for that second person in the first week of every month.
Definitely.
That's what I worked out. And, you know what? It took me a long time to work that out. And that's the favor. Go back and say, like, what would I change? For sure, that's one thing. Is like, and just really, making sure that your staff are on your side.
Yeah.
And there's lots of different things you need to do. It's not just cash.
No, for sure. Yeah. I think that's one of the things we at our practice try and do a lot is it on practice, on internal kind of training on our staff. We've got every second week, we've got a 2 hours set aside where we do like personal training. And it's amazing how the girls respond to it.
In a positive way. They become more productive for you.
Yeah.
So I kind of don't want to waste time, doing admin.
Exactly.
Actually, I make money in the practice when I'm seeing patients.
Yeah.
So the less admin I can do, the better, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of something for sure that can help young dentists.
Mark, I'm not going to take too much time of you. I know you want to go on. I just want to say one of the other things I want to always touch on is, have you got a bad experience or bad part of your life that you learn something from? That we always see the good and the great, and everyone shows all the great things. But is there anything you can think of that? I know I'm throwing you under the bus a little bit.
Yeah, that's pretty hard.
If there's nothing, it's also right.
Yeah, I have to be honest. I look back and I mean, there's nothing really bad that changed the way I do things, see things, feel things. As I say, every now and then you make some mistakes. Where you maybe didn't understand about investing in other equipment, material, but from a personal point of view, not really. I have to say that I feel really quite blessed that I've had the opportunity in working in kind of Europe and South Africa.
Yeah.
I think maybe if I hadn't come back to South Africa, that would have been a big mistake.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, South Africa is a crazy place, and as much as it kind of closed some perceived doors.
Yeah.
It opened so many more.
Yeah.
Coming back here, and so
I can imagine.
I mean, the classical saying, the grass is never greener. It was not always greener on the other side.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think that one mistake would have been for me to personally just stay in Europe.
Okay.
I've enjoyed my time coming back to South Africa. There's been massive challenges. We all know that.
Yeah.
And so, giving back, riding bikes, doing stuff, I felt a lot of positivity, put it that way, internally.
Yeah.
Whereas I know there's a lot of negativity going on. But internally, a lot of positivity.
Because that's the thing, the people listening to this podcast are sitting there thinking, should I move abroad or should I take my family and live somewhere else? And you're a guy that's been on both sides of the pond, so you'll know.
I mean, there's no black and white answer to that.
Yeah.
We all have kind of different agendas. We have different things that tick boxes, and I understand the difficulties of dentists, young dentists, particularly in South Africa. But I also see the difficulties of young dentists wherever I travel.
I spent some time with a bunch of guys from the UK, and it's like, it's not that great. The NHS system is really difficult to work on.
So I think more than worrying about how difficult it is, look how you can better your life and better your work environment and better your techniques and better everything. I think we focused often on too much of negative stuff.
Exactly.
And so for sure, that's what I've tried over the years, is to be like a super positive person.
Okay, and you can see it in your life.
Yeah, and not really kind of doubt myself too much.
Okay.
And have that confidence. Yeah, because we can all do it. I mean, to be honest with you, I was an average student. I'm a GP. There's nothing special about me. It's just that I was determined.
Yeah, and I think guys like us look at you and we see what you're doing, and then when I think of it, I think you're not a specialist. You're nothing different than what we are. You're just a guy putting in the hours, doing the hard work.
I was an average dentist, running an average practice, and over a period of time, I understood that wasn't where I wanted to be, and the only person who was going to change that was myself. And so I set myself some goals, and slowly but surely,
But that change in mindset, did it come slowly, or was it something that happened in your life?
Yeah, I think ultimately you kind of, I think for me, it must have been something like, I went to lectures or meetings, and I saw people and I was like, wow, I'd love to be like that person.
Yeah.
And rather than just imagining that I was going to be like that person, I said, shit, I'm going to make it happen. And so again, as I say, for those people who might look and think, wow, that's just not possible. For sure, it's possible.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think that's you, that guy now that we're looking up to, want to be like that guy, and I'm.
It's possible. I mean, for sure, I've done nothing different other than, I've been determined. I've learned a lot of skills.
Yeah.
And I've implemented them. And I don't work necessarily harder than anyone else, but at the same time, in my opinion, I'm still sitting here doing dentistry and enjoying it.
That's the important part.
Because of what I put in, not what I took out.
Yeah.
And I think that's the mistake that I see in dentistry is that you kind of, and I'm not talking about financially, we're talking about actually what you get out is completely based on what you put in.
Yeah.
And I see too many, and I was like that for a long time, too many people not complaining, but, just like seeing that the profession isn't really handing them or giving to them what they thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And then I look and I think, wow, shit, you're not actually putting anything into this. At the end of the day, roll your sleeves up, get involved.
Yeah, get in the trenches and start doing some
just
hard
get
work.
involved. Whatever it might be. There's now tons of different ways of getting involved.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Mark, but you've honestly been one of my inspirations to do better work and to be a better person. And I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here.
No problem. It's been an absolute pleasure, to be honest with you. Anytime that I can sit and chat to such an awesome guy like you, by the way.
Really apologize.
and secondly, I think I've got a great place to practice, but you have the best place to practice.
Yeah, no, we've got it figured out. You guys in Cape Town think you have, but we...
No, you've got a really cool place. And... yeah, you see, I mean, you had that vision. You weren't scared. You put yourself out there, and look where you are now.
Yeah.
You move forward.
I think that's one of the things I don't think I'm super successful, but I've got a very comfortable life doing nice work that I enjoy doing. Yeah. And we're sitting in one of the poorest parts of the country. Yeah. So I don't think you have to be in Joburg, you have to be in Cape Town with all the people and all the money. You don't.
I mean, I constantly talk about Nazari, who's the young dentist, Ukrainian guy. Everyone knows Nazari. I mean, he's the most famous kind of microscope dentist. You know Nazari.
Yeah.
And I always talk about Naz. I say, there's a guy who was 29. He lectured in something like 40 countries around the world, across the dentists. And he's not a specialist. Yeah. He comes from the smallest little village in the Ukraine. There's 200,000 people. Yet he decided that he didn't want to be that dentist stuck in that little place.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's only just moved his practice now to Kiev.
Really?
So, and at 29 years old, he was doing
amazing.
That sort of stuff. I mean, and so just, have a look at it. And he's a guy that you should mention as a kind of inspiration for young dentists.
Yeah, we'll definitely look into him some more. Cool, man. Thanks for the time, and we'll catch up again.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Cheers.